Molly Carmel, and this is the podcast I always wish existed, a bite-sized, on-the-ground spiritual note that can shift your thinking and your outlook on life to help make us all a little bit more awake, alive, and ascending. So today I want to talk about something that happened to me recently on a walk with my dog that made me realize just how quickly my brain goes to the worst possible outcome. And what this cute little monk on Instagram reminded me about that pattern. So my dog Danny and I go on a nature walk in this gorgeous forest near me at least 5 days a week. It's really one of my mandated spiritual rituals. It's just me and it's Danny and it's the trees and sometimes it's the squirrels and just a lot of peace. So I'm on this walk and suddenly something inside of me is like, where are your keys? And I look and my keys are lost. They're not in my pockets. They're not in my bra, and I go into full panic mode, right? And I just start scouring the walk. I literally did the loop like 4 times. I retraced every single step. And the whole time I'm just doing this math in my head. Like, how am I going to get out of here? How am I going to get a new set of keys? It's not even an old car, so I can't even unlock it with a key. It's a fob. How much does that cost? I don't have an extra one. Do you call locksmiths nowadays with the fob? Is someone going to find my keys and like steal my car and break into my house? I mean, I really went there is what I'm trying to tell you. Full spiral catastrophe mode. And then just to add insult to injury, the shame kicked in. And that old familiar voice, she's like, of course you did this. Like what is wrong with you? You can't even be an organized person. So I'm standing in the middle of the forest and I just like kind of throw up a prayer. Like, what should I do? Like, what should I do? And weirdly, this Buddhist monk I had started following on January 1st on Instagram, because obviously I'm a scroller, aren't you? And he was talking about on January 1st, I think, how our brains are wired for safety and not happiness. This is something I rely on deeply, that being happy is unsafe for the brain, right? So being scared and being a little bit paranoid is really your brain, your very unevolved brain, just trying to protect you, right? And so this monk says something like, your brain is always running worst case scenarios. But what if the worst thing isn't going to happen? What if the best thing is going to happen? He says this so simply. Maybe try putting your focus on the best case scenarios instead of the worst case scenarios and see what happens. And so I was standing there in the trees and I was thinking like, okay, like what do I have to lose, right? Let's see if this works. Maybe there's a better solution than these ones that I'm thinking of. And what if the keys are somewhere I couldn't even think of, right? What if it's going to work out better than I could even know? And let me make it very clear to you, Ascenders. This was not an easy task. Much easier said than done, Mr. Monk. My brain did not want to go there. It just wanted to stay in panic mode. And I seeded. I'm like, okay, I cannot find these keys anywhere on the walk. So, tail between my legs, walked back to my car. And here's what I realized when I got to the car. The car was open and the keys were in the car and the car was completely safe. I mean, talk about lucky, right? The whole spiral was for absolutely nothing. But it really made me start thinking about how quickly my brain goes to the negative, and how automatic that is. And really wanting to make this concerted effort to try to train my brain to be more positive. And again, so much easier said than done. And that brings me to today's pocket sage. It comes from Sarah Ban Breathnach's book, Simple Abundance. And she's a writer who focuses on gratitude and authenticity and finding joy in everyday life. And here's what she writes. We have a choice every day regarding the attitude we will embrace for that day. We cannot change our past. We cannot change the fact that people act in certain ways. We cannot change the inevitable. The only thing we can do is play on the one string we have, and that is our attitude. Life is about choices. When you cut away all the junk, every situation is a choice. You choose how you react to situations. You choose how people affect your mood. You choose to be in a good mood or a bad mood. The bottom line, it's your choice how you live your life. Woof, let me read that one again. We have a choice every day regarding the attitude we will embrace for that day. We cannot change our past. We cannot change the fact that people will act in certain ways. We cannot change the inevitable. The only thing we can do is play on the one string we have, and that is our attitude. Life is about choices. When you cut away all the junk, every situation is a choice. You choose how you react to situations. You choose how people affect your mood. You choose to be in a good mood or a bad mood. The bottom line, it's your choice how you live your life. And it's such a good reminder that we have a choice. It doesn't feel that way sometimes, but it's true. And standing in that forest, I was choosing the worst case scenario, right? I could have easily worked hard to and choosing to trust that it would all work out, which is what I did, right? And so our word of the day, it's like this is the best word of the day so far. Not really, but it's a really, really good one. It's perspective. Perspective is the difference between I lost my keys and my whole life is ruined, and I lost my keys and they're probably somewhere nearby. Perspective is recognizing that your brain's first instinct is to panic and catastrophize and just to assume the worst. It's just your nervous system trying to keep you safe. But let's be honest, safe doesn't always mean helpful. And so perspective gives us the opportunity to step back and ask, like, well, what if this does work out? What if it's not as bad as I think? And let me be super clear, Ascenders. This is not toxic positivity. This is not pretending that everything's fine when it's not. It's just refusing to let your brain spiral into disaster mode before you even know what's actually happening. That's the key. Before you even know what's actually happening. And I want to remind us all, it's not personal. The nervous system is never personal. Our brains are wired for safety, not happiness. That's not personal. And the monk on Instagram was right. We never obsess over the good. That's not how the brain is wired. We obsess over what could go wrong. And that's evolutionary, right? Our ancestors who are worried about rustling in the bushes survived longer than the ones who assumed it was nothing, right? And we're not running from predators anymore, at least not usually. We're just losing our keys in the forest. But our brains still treat every inconvenience like it's a life or death situation. So what do we do about that? I think the answer is in training, and recognizing when your brain is spiraling and gently and lovingly redirecting it towards a different possibility. And that doesn't mean like everything's fine when it's not, but it does mean like, well, what if this works out better than I think? Even like, what if there's an amazing locksmith that I meet and she becomes my best friend, right? Standing in that forest, my brain wanted to convince me that losing my keys was an ultimate disaster and that I was going to be stuck and it was going to ruin my whole day and that there was something deeply wrong with me for losing keys. But like none of that's true. The keys were in the car was safe, I was fine. And honestly, even if the keys hadn't been in the car, I'd have figured it out because I always do. And this is really hard work, by the way. I'm not pretending what I'm saying is easy. Our brains have been practicing worst case scenarios for our entire lives and the lives before us. So asking our brains to consider best case scenarios feels really unnatural and risky and almost naive. But what if it's not? What if we make a choice to focus on what could go right instead of what could go wrong? And what if that makes us even more resilient? I don't have it all figured out, promise you that. And you know that about me if you're a listener of this show, but I'm trying because I really want to try to notice when my brain goes straight to catastrophe and just ask myself, what else could be true right now? So, our reflective question of the day: where in your life are you defaulting to worst case scenarios? And what would it look like to train your brain towards possibility instead of panic? And listen, if you're someone whose brain defaults to worst case scenarios, welcome home. But especially around food or body or your ability to change, I want you to know that shifting your perspective is really one of the most powerful tools that you have. And recovery from binging and emotional eating requires a huge shift in perspective from I messed up again. I'm never going to get this to like, I'm learning and that's okay, you know? And from like, ugh, I'm hopeless, I can never get well, to what if something could actually work? And that is really a big part of my stop starting over system. We learn to interrupt catastrophic thinking and move from shame to compassion and to train your brain toward possibility instead of panic. So if you're curious about working with me, gosh, I would live and die to chat. You can learn more and schedule a free call. I have everything down in the show notes at mollycarmel.com. And listen, I am right here with you, Ascenders. We're learning to shift our perspective one forest spiral at a time. We rise together. See you next time.